What's up, everyone? Hey, we just got to freshen up on some of the people that support us out here with Just Another Failure podcast. By the way, Heatwave Visual just dropped their new Future Tech sunglasses. They got 3 colorways, I think, right now. We have kind of what would you call that, a rainbow lens?
Yeah, I kind of got a pink rainbow lens.
Yeah, and they got a gold lens and a black lens, and they got the clear frames, they have the safety frames. Anyways, Heatwave's awesome. They're our buddies out of San Jose, California. And they hook us up. If you head over, use promo code FAIL, and get hooked up on the website. Grab yourself some sunglasses, maybe a sick t-shirt or a hoodie.
They got sick gear and sick glasses.
Yeah,
so.
Let's support our rad buddies out there. Also, our buddies at Rockwell, they make sick watches. I've been loving my Coliseum Assault watch. I run the Thid Rent line. He's running the same thing. The watches are great. You can burn your calories on here. You can check your run. 2 different time zones.
Kind of does it all.
It does it all. They're quality watches that we have everything from sportswear to luxury wear. Plus they do CrossFit gear. They do workout supplements, everything. Head over, use Failure 20 with those guys. Get yourself laced up with some sweet gear. Also, we got to shout out our buddies London Boat Rentals for hooking us up with a spot and letting us record.
Yeah, definitely thank you to London Boat Rentals, because without them, we wouldn't have this awesome studio that we have. So yeah, big shout out to them.
If you're in the Long Beach area, stop by, grab a Duffy, come down, stop by Ballast Point Boathouse. We're open again. You know,
life's back, baby.
Let's go.
But yeah, we also have a couple other sponsors. Muertos Coffee. These guys are awesome. The guys that run this are just downright cool dudes. The coffee, also amazing. And I mean, what better way to help give back to our first responders? Because every purchase through Muertos Coffee, 5% goes back to first responders. So get yourself some good coffee and go support the people that help you.
It's firefighter owned and operated.
Firefighter owned and operated. Like I said, these guys are awesome. Their coffee is good, and it's for a good cause. So use Just Another Failure at checkout at muertoscoffee.com, I believe it is.
It is.
And get yourself some good coffee and give back to the community. And then also, we have our buddies at Canadips. This is a chewing tobacco alternative to get you off of chewing tobacco, because that stuff's nasty. They come in all sorts of different flavors. They are CBD pouches that you just pop right in the lip. They call them packing a lip boomer.
And no THC.
No, you just let them chill on the lip. Get all the benefits of CBD. They also do have a THC infused pouch if you are looking for that side of things. That they should be dropping soon, I think.
Yeah, I think in June.
And yeah, these guys are absolutely awesome too. So if you're looking for pack yourself a lip boomer yourself, go to Canadips and use FAIL20 at checkout, get 20% off. And I would suggest just running it down the board. Go buy all the flavors because they're all amazing.
You're not going to be disappointed.
Absolutely not. They're awesome. So yeah, go support everybody. Rockwell Watches, Heatwave Visual, Muertos Coffee, and Canadips. And you guys can also support us.
JustANOTHERFAILURE.com.
JustANOTHERFAILURE.com. You can buy some shirts if you'd like. You can also support us on Anchor for as little as $1 a month.
But overall, enjoy our episode. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy. We'll see you guys later.
What up?
All right, here we go.
What's going on? Came in way too hot. Way too hot. Ooh, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Just Another Failure podcast with myself, Devin, my co-host Matt over here, and with us today, we got, if you're not watching on YouTube and you're just listening, we got an absolute unit with us today. His name is Byron Rogers. What is going on, man?
Boom, what's up, gentlemen? It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you.
Thanks for coming out, man. I mean, I just can't wait to hear the stories that we get with you. And I know there's going to be a lot of fun stuff. For you guys that don't know, if you don't follow Byron on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I was going to, the intro, I was like, I don't even know how to, give him an intro because you got so much going on.
I do.
I mean, former U.S. Marine, correct?
Yep.
So you got that. I mean, published author. We got that going.
That happened.
And then you also got, you're doing executive protection lifestyle, which is a pretty gnarly security. I don't even know what you would say. Brand, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, man. So it's always an interesting thing, even for me to introduce myself. Like even when I'm like, well, they're like, well, just say what it is, dude.
People are like, what do you do? And you're like,
whatever it takes.
Well, where do I start actually?
Yeah, no, man. So I've got basically two primary brands. One civilian facing, one is executive protection, private security industry facing. So executive protection. Lifestyle is my podcast for executive protection professionals, but anybody can really listen to it. I've got the Protector podcast. It's like civilian facing. So if you break them in half, you've got Protector Nation on one side, and then you've got the League of Executive Protection Specialists on the other side. Under the League, I've got my school, training day. We've got a master's class coming out. We've got on-ground training coming out. That's awesome. And then you've got Protector Nation. You've got the Protector Symposiums, a whole bunch of instructors at the top of the game there, live events, things like that. And then I've got my boutique private security company, Bravo Research Group, out here in Orange County, and we do international stuff, so that's awesome. We basically build, strategies and teams around VIPs, so that's the EP component of what I'm doing. Published author, got a master's in some psychology stuff, and do a lot of other fun stuff, man.
Not bad.
Just the jack of all trades, huh?
Come on. Like, I don't even know where to start
Right?
with that list, just coming back on that. But, so what did you write on the author side? What did you write?
Finding meaning after the military. So as I got out of the Marine Corps infantry, I remember just realizing that, hey, dude, this body count's going up. I'm losing more cats out here in the 1st Civilian Division, in the 1st Civ Div, than I was losing in combat, And so I was just like, dude, I remember we were 21 and perfect, like fighting out there. We had each other. Now, I think, it's just we're all like separated. Like we got hit hard with an ambush. We're separated and dudes are tapping out left, right, and center. So I started just kind of being like, well, I'm a squad leader, like how can I make a positive contribution to this fight, And so that's when I dug into the psychology and got my master's in, counseling and forensic psychology, and then went to Tony Robbins' strategic interventionist training and started being like, well, how can I really dig into what's going on with me and my dudes? And then, I really discovered Viktor Frankl, which is like logotherapy, purpose-centered therapy. And I went through my own struggles getting out, realizing that like, I'm addicted to my own dopamine here. Like I'm trying to go hard and fast all the time. I'm doing EP. I'm traveling the world, hit 60 countries my first year, 65 or so countries my first year. At 21, making 6 figures, like barely survived that trash. And then like, the rest is history. But the book was about the software, the mindware that I used to survive that period of time. And it's just kind of my contribution to anyone going through transition. So like, if you're in the military, awesome. But also if you're like retiring, you know what I mean? Or if you're even just a civilian that's like just trying to figure out how to transition between two lives, one that maybe gave you an identity, and now trying to redefine that, dig in and get that traction, because it can kill you trying to make that transition.
Well, especially if you like go in young too, like that's kind of all you know for a couple years, and that's like hard coming out of that. I would assume.
Yeah.
So did you go Marine Corps right out of high school?
Yeah, man. Right out of high school.
How many years did you do total?
4.
Okay, and then you were 0311 infantry?
0351.
51.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
So I handheld rockets in demo.
Damn.
I got a decent cutting score, so they're like, dude, he's big and he's got a cutting score. Let's put him in weapons.
Like, let's strap this dude up with some big shit and have him go blow stuff up.
Like my first call sign was John Coffee Boot. Get John Coffee Boot over here. Have him carry it. He'll be fine. Yeah.
Man, going Green Mile on
Yeah,
you, huh?
man. Semper Fi, dude. We ain't nobody. Everyone gets equal hate in the Marine Corps. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish the world was that way, man. It's the good stuff, man. I miss it.
You post about that a lot too.
Heck yeah.
That's like one of your big things that you stand behind. You're a huge advocate for, which I think is great. The equality part that you stand behind.
Yeah.
And you don't dig into the bullshit and stuff that's really going on in the world right now. You look at things of how they are, then you take your military background and the leadership that you got there, and you try to project that into civilians into the world and say like, dude, it doesn't matter if you're black, brown, white, yellow, or whatever. We're all equal on this, right? Like that equal hate thing you just said.
Man, it's equal.
It's equal across the board. It doesn't matter,
Yeah, equal rights and equal lefts, man. And it kills me because, you know, when I started, I mean, you guys down with long answers or what?
Yeah, let's go.
You know, like when I started to wake up, you know, to like the reality of life, you know, I started to realize like I'm sitting in the Eiffel Tower and I'm with this crew of dudes, like the baddest dudes, you know, that that are at the top of the EP game, and I'm like 21 and I'm like this infantry dude and I'm like the least dangerous guy at the table, right? So there's like Russian dudes and, you know, SEALs and like all these bad dudes, you know, and I'm sitting here and like we're ordering lunch and it's like they're giving us like it was like a $20 Coca-Cola and I'm like, you guys are crazy, $20 for Coca-Cola, like what's the Coca-Cola gonna do for me later on? You know what I mean? Like, and I just remember having this epiphany, like, hey man, you know, your gift will make room for you, you know, like being physically bad and strong and capable has gotten you to like kind of the highest level of this game. We traveled born the president of the United States my first year on this detail. And I started to realize there's a difference between strength and power. And I was like, yo, we're all strong dudes, you know, but like we're capped out at salary at, you know, or whatever at, you know, right over 6 figures at the time. And like, who has power? I'm like, yeah, my little like kind of like puny like boss that's up there in the suite right now chilling that can replace us, and you know, one of us goes down and replace us in 48 hours, and wise men wonder while strong men die. So then I started realizing, well, how do I amass actual influence or power beyond just where I am physically? And I started to realize, like, dude, I gotta invest in my mind in order to influence things that way. And that's when I started to wake up to the reality of like the mastery, like the lordship that we have over our life. Like, I have power over my life. And so being like from not an African American home, but from the Bahamas, you know, my dad's a really successful businessman. He's a hard dude, really hard dude, but still might have to shoot him kind of dude. You know what I mean? You know, and he got shot at point blank range with a shotgun and survived that trash, right? And he still talks crap to me to this day, right? So this dude is a bad dude.
He's still holding that over you?
Yeah,
like, oh, you think you're badass? Yeah. Come on.
So I realized, you know, like, there's no stinking excuses. And I was confronted with an equation. It was like, hey, dude, like, you're kind of cool and, like, funny and, like, in good shape. But, like, really, how much power do you really have over your life? You're, like, kind of like you're the help right now. So if you want to really live powerfully, you better you got to change your attack strategy. And that's when I started to realize, like, this life, if anyone's going to do it, I'm the common denominator in every situation of my life. Red, black, yellow, purple, orange, pink, whatever. I better freaking get after it, and no one's going to save me. My mom's going to love me whether I fail or succeed. God bless her, and it's all up to me. And so that's when I started being like, all right, we got to get on different paths. So then, to answer your question, I'm sitting here, and I see these narratives, these cats telling you, you know, oh, because you're black, you're hurt, and you're wounded, and you're like, you know, not you're these things. And I'm like, forget you, dude. Like, I was in a lower middle class family. I went to public schools. I didn't get good grades. I freaking joined the Marine Corps. I survived, thank God, by the grace of God. And then I got out and became an entrepreneur. And now I've built this, like, you know, my own little empire, my own little ecosystem. And you're going to tell me that there ain't nothing wrong. I'm sitting in my master's class looking at everyone else. I'm just like, you guys need to build your own trash. Like, the only thing that's wrong is people believe this mental plantation bull crap about what they can and can't do. And I'm just not trying to hear it. And it kills me when I see other people, you know, that are African American, black, whatever you want to call it, like me, that are eating this stuff up. And I get the most pushback from them when all I'm trying to do is tell them, hey, if you can see what I see, you'll do what I do, you can have what I have. And I want to be an example of a dude who didn't take no for an answer and created some valuable trash while I was here on this planet. You know, and maybe, that's Marine Corps speak. Yeah, man. So I'm like, ain't nothing stopping you but you, and I don't want to hear about any excuses, man.
But that's a cool mentality to like hear the other side where, I mean, you know, we have a ton of people who, like you're saying, I mean, that's like the woe is me type thing, you know, and it's everybody has the same 24 hours to do. Yep. It's just all about how much work you can put in and
100%.
How much you're willing to give. And I mean, you're a prime example. That's awesome to hear.
Thank you. And how much value you can give. That the world's gonna reciprocate. It's gonna reward you in direct proportion of that value, you know, and that's something I realized, man, really, really quick. Thank God. And it's something I just want to hammer home. And at the end of the day, if I do, you know, really, really become really successful and people look at me, I just want them to see what, like, one mediocre dude that's like imperfect can do if he's just faithful with what he's been given. Like if you just work on your trash. Like I was a little fat kid, dyslexic, like, you know what I mean? I was friend zone fat and like, yeah, couldn't read, still can't read.
And Matt is just vibing on all this right now.
He's like, heck yeah.
He's like, so there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yes.
I'm like, dude, and I just freaking kept hammering on that trash until I had something of value. And the equation was, hey bro, you want power or you want influence so you can live your life and have freedom and be remembered for contribution. What are you worth? Like right now, like what's anyone going to pay you to do? Like, what are you worth? And so the beginning of the equation was like, yo, so you got to invest in yourself so you can become valuable enough to get compensated or even noticed or even to make a valuable contribution in the first place. Because there ain't no participation trophies. It's victory or capture in this game, ladies and gentlemen.
Kill or be killed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's what like a lot of you guys coming from the military that have that leadership have brought to the civilian world, that if people pay attention to what you guys are saying, it would change a lot. You know, you go from like Jocko and Leaf and extreme ownership, right? Yeah. There's no excuses anymore at the end of the day. You own your faults. You own your failures. You own everything that's going wrong in your life. And you're like, this is what's messing up, but this is how I can change it. Because, you know, just like you said, we're given the same 24 hours in a day. What are we going to do with it? And so, you know, you recognize that at a very early age. Yeah. And you're thriving with it. You're pushing that forward. You're like, hey, there's no excuse at the end of the day if I failed other than that was on me. Yeah.
Like, and I have to live with it.
Yeah.
Like who, like there's no one, like I just get the, like, you know, all that matters in the end is what we can achieve, Alexander the Great. And like, okay, I failed because that person, cool, my life still sucks. You know what I mean? Like, like you can't change what you can't take responsibility for. Okay, that person like screwed me over. Cool, I better pick some different people on my team then, because guess what? Like, I gotta win. Like, what makes it okay to fail? Like, nothing makes it okay to, you still, it just sucks for you. You know what I'm saying?
It sucks either way. Like, failing's not cool no matter what. But if you learn from it, then that's all that matters, right? Yeah. And I mean, that's obviously the whole mentality behind this show, is that we love to talk about the failure side of things and like make it funny, you know? I mean, when you're going through it, it sucks, right? Obviously, it's not fun. Yeah. But once you get through it, you can laugh about it and be like, yeah, I kind of fucked 100%. Up there.
Well, like at first, you know, and that's the thing I've noticed. Like at first, it's not cool to fail, like because your ego is fragile and you haven't built up like the internal, like gears and muscles to like actually really endure it. But then like you start to get inoculated, like what I've probably blown up like 8-9 businesses at this point. You know what I'm saying? Before I got to where something worked.
Humble brag, no worries.
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna drop that in there.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Right? But like after a while, I started getting mad, inoculated to failure, and I started getting that. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. The obstacle is the path. Failure is the stinking path. Like I go to the gym every day in my garage, and I go down there to fail under that bench, and I start to realize that like, yo, my edge is that I'm not afraid to fail, and I see the value in failing, you know, and I run towards that. If I'm not scared, I ain't doing anything. So then I start to now, like, with these live events I'll be planning, you know, people are like, yo, it's a pandemic. Like, what happens if it fails? Like, what are you going to do if it fails? And I'm like, oh, man, I'm spinning plates. Like, I got 6 more moves coming after that. Like, I'm in a war right now.
I'm already up there.
Yeah, like you're looking at a battle. Like, I'm in the middle of a war right now. Like, I'm going to be way more dangerous on my next lap because of what I'm going to learn. Whether I win or lose by your standards, but either way I'm learning, so I'm winning anyway.
Bro, I'm ready to run through a wall already right now. Like, this guy making me motivated already.
It's alchemy of failure, man. It's good stuff.
I love it. But I mean, dude, we have to ask. Like, I mean, you've obviously probably seen some crazy stuff. I mean, we'll even start from the military background. I mean, what was the craziest thing you went through in the military, you think?
The craziest thing, like that journey, there's so many crazy spots in there. Like when I first got to the fleet, I was trying to wrap my head around combat, like the imminent going to combat, because I joined, you know, right in 04. You know, so I was just like, all right, we're going to go combat. We're joined to go to war. You know, it's finna to go down. So
right in the heart of the war, man. Like you're year 3 walking into this thing.
Yeah, like, man. And the homies got back.
He's like Kevin Hart, like it's about to go down.
Literally, bro. Like, so I get there, and you know, my boys 3-1 had just got home from the Battle of Fallujah, and they're just like homicidal, psychopathic. Like it's like Juvie meets Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. The Fleet is nothing like you guys think it is when you watch TV, dude. Like it was like, this is sanctioned. Like it was just sanctioned.
You're like, you guys hired a bunch of psychopaths and put them in some camo and sent them over here, huh?
Yeah. And so you just set us loose on areas that you want to dominate, and that's what we did as Marines, man. And so it was like training day. You get there and we get pulled in the rain room, and dudes are like, one dude takes off his blouse and he's got like just a bone, so his whole bicep's blown off, and he's like, hey, if you guys don't listen to me, this is what's gonna happen. If you guys don't listen to what we're gonna teach you, like, this is what's gonna happen, And you get that speech like, hey, remember all the trash you learned in boot camp? Unlearn that trash right now. This is really how we clear.
This is real life now. Yeah.
We're more boys.
Yeah, you'll freaking die if you do that stuff. And so like these realizations and the
nothing
gravity,
like a guy that just got shot up giving you this motivational speech right
honestly,
now.
bro, like that's exactly what it was. And so the gravity starts setting in of like, okay, like this is not Call of Duty, bro. Like this is real.
You're not hitting the gulag. You're not coming back.
Yeah, you don't respawn, man. And
You don't respawn.
And I'm sitting here, at least not the same, and I am sitting here, and I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, like, this is like juvie. I'm in, and there's like dudes getting beat in the next room and like screaming, and we're up all night getting hazed. It was awesome.
You're like, where am I?
Literally,
what the hell did I sign up for?
It was like man camp, like you're just in the octagon.
Just so much testosterone
man.
flowing around,
and completely unfettered, then because the Mothers of America hadn't gotten in and ruined things yet. So we sit here. It was still masculine.
The glory days.
Yeah, man.
Quick little jab there.
Yeah, which is half the reason I got out. But anyway, so we're getting raised by this like pack of wolves, like Romulus and Remus style, getting ready to go to war, and then like we flash forward. We're invading Haditha. We're leaving the dam up there, the Haditha Dam, and I'm out in the middle of the desert, and we meet up. We got skeletons painted on our faces. If you can picture a bunch of kids kicking in your front door with like rifles and skeletons painted on their faces, and like
just complete fucking mayhem.
Oh my Lord of the Flies, and these, and you're,
that's what you guys are for real. Like.
Little doll baby heads on our camis, and like I had a pet scorpion. I kept in an Nalgene bottle and would fight with the other scorpions at nighttime. Like it was insane.
I love it.
Really, and we're and I have a rocket launcher and an AR and a pistol. Like, so we're loaded to the teeth. We're taking over countries, but there was a distinct moment when we're getting ready to go in the Battle of Fallujah, and we meet up with our Iraqi army people, like dudes, and I'm like, it's just weird. Everything's weird. They're speaking different languages. It's like 3 a.m. and like you can't even see anyone, and they're speaking different languages, and it just starts getting real, more and more real. And then we're like getting ready to enter the city, and an army unit goes flying past us in a Bradley trying to get to the city before us, and our lieutenants are like trying to hit him on the radio, like, hey, you're going into a minefield. And sure enough, I got to see my first mushroom cloud, and kaboof. And I remember watching that Bradley just get flipped inside out, and I remember hearing all the rounds cook off after that, and like dudes running around and stuff's on fire, and we're sitting there watching, and their units are trying to get to them and stuff. And then that's when I saw that explosion. I remember seeing that and being like, this doesn't even look real. And then like the little voice in my head, like the Holy Spirit's been my guiding light my whole life.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you don't even know what real is yet. And right then I just like went, like kind of not shut down, but became like hyper conscious. Like this is about to be an experience.
Like you have to be in that moment. Like you're right there. There's no thinking about what's going on. Like you have to be in there full.
Yeah, nothing.
Full
matters.
concentration. Like that's all you're.
Live?
Yeah.
and you're like next up. Like you're on the diving board getting ready to go next. Like you're next up.
You're on deck.
Yeah, exactly, man. And then we shoot these. Well, then like the city, we cut the power to the city. And it goes black. And we shoot these APOBs, and an APOB's like it's like a rocket with 100 and some odd grenades on a string, and it blows a huge trench in like a minefield. And then, so I see that go up, and then tanks click on, and they like thunder run into the city, and then we like click on like Led Zeppelin, like they're literally having like freaking psyops is turning on like death metal and
you got AC/DC thunder going.
Bro,
it's
like literally this is happening. Literally, like and like green smoke everywhere, and we're running, and they're like, stay behind the tracks of the tanks, and their tanks are just running into the city. We're running into the city. There's death metal blasting. There's stinking green smoke just enveloping this dark city. They have no lights anymore. We shut off all the power. There's no light. Nothing. Dogs are barking, and we're just running into the city. And that was another huge moment. And I just remember we got to our first spot where we went firm. We're on top of someone's house, you know, and they're all like in one room, and it's freezing, and dogs are barking. There's little firefights breaking out. We're in our MVGs, and I'm just like, look, you know, watching for stuff to happen. And my corporal runs up to me, and he's just like, hey, Rodgers, you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And he's like, it's straight up Twilight Zone out here, isn't it? And I'm just like, yeah. And then the mosques kick on, and they're like, kill the infidel. And then we're playing psyops, so you can hear like women screaming, babies crying, pianos, like every creepy noise.
Yeah, because now you're playing with their brain.
Yeah. So we got.
This is like a straight up fucking video game intro, and you guys are living it.
Yeah, man, and you're just sitting up there, and you're just waiting for them to say, "All right, let's move," you know, and that was like a really surreal moment. And then,
your heart rate's just spiking already.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like tweaked out.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, 1 on, 1 off. You're sleeping an hour, maybe 2 hours at a time. Your buddy's like standing over you in a window, making sure nobody comes around the corner while you're trying to catch some Z's. And
you're hearing the call to prayer like 7 times a day with your stuff trying to go in the background.
What is that like to trying to go to sleep?
You know, it's really interesting, man. Like, by the grace of God, I just have an ability to just, like, you're so tired because we're just going house. We're just hitting all these houses, and it's, like, such intense. Like, I could die around this corner. I could die when we hit this house. I could hit an IED on the door. Or so you're at this heightened sense of just intensity, just, like, taking in information as much as you can while you're clearing. And it's not like this sexy SEB, like, slow clearing. Like, when I train with those guys, they're, like, looking at me, and they're like, hey, dude. Where are you running to? And I'm like, this is how we do it in Marine Corps. It's like shock troop tactics. We get in the house, and like in the Marine Corps, it's like, you're screaming at the top of your lungs, war cry, kick the door in, and you guys are violently getting after it, right?
Devil dogs just ripping through doors.
Yeah, bro, and it's creepy because when you're sitting in the corner and you're playing Op 4 and you're trying to like shoot the other guys with sims, you hear them screaming, the whole building's vibrating, dudes are throwing trash, and it's crazy, and it works. But you know, the SEB dudes are like, yo, man, how long do you have to clear this house? And I'm like, I don't know, like, until we find the enemy. He's like, no, the rest of your life. You better take your time. They're like, you know, so anyway, so I get out and I, you know, have that realization, but.
He's kicking in doors, running through like, time, what is it? Let's go. Like, they're like, mellow out, guy.
Yeah, no, man. So, you know, it was crazy. It was good. I'm so glad I went through all of it. But ultimately, you know, with regards to the falling asleep thing, I just learned how to turn my body off. In boot camp, you give that command to rest, and you're so exhausted that I just learned, like, hey, man, I got to trust, and I would just shut off. And then, you know, you would wake up so tired that you're, like, drunk for the first few minutes, and you're just like, God, why? Like, you're just, so pissed every time you wake up. The whole deployment, every time you wake up, you're so pissed.
Well, your brain's on overload the entire time. You're constantly in fight or flight. Your adrenaline's pumping through the roof, and then trying to rejuvenate as you sleep, and then wake up just in adrenaline again. And that's a tough place to be in, right there.
Like, it changes the actual structure of your brain. Actually, they say that's
the stress load. The
PTSD really comes from, you know, and I've done my best to keep that alive in a lot of different ways because it's a huge deliverable that I bring to like the world and the private security game I play now. You know, that hypervigilance.
How many tours did you end up doing?
I only did 2.
You did 2?
Yeah, man. 1 float, 1 combat tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where are you from originally? Are you Orange County kid? What's your background prior to the military? Yeah,
I was born in the Bahamas in Nassau.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I heard you say your dad's Bohemian.
He's Bahamian, and that's why I can swim. And dude, I didn't even know black dudes in America couldn't swim until I got to boot camp. I mean, not boot camp, until I got to the fleet, and my dudes were all like, yo, we're gonna watch Rodgers drown today. And I'm like, what are you guys even talking about? And they're like, They're like, you can't swim. I'm like, yes, I can. Like, where I come from, we can all swim. I was like, I bet I swim better than you. And they're like, nah, dude. They're like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? And then I get to the tank, and all the other brothers, like all my dudes, are all drowning and screaming. And I'm like, yo, like, you know, you're losing all street cred right now. Like, you guys are making us look bad. And that's when I realized, like, African Americans don't be swimming, you know. But yeah, no, I was born in the Bahamas, and Nassau, and then my parents split, and then I spent half my year in Washington State, you know, going to school up there, and then the other half I'd be like spearfishing down in the Bahamas during the summers. So I just kind of like bounced back and forth my whole childhood.
So what motivated you to go Marine Corps?
This one's easy. It's hilarious. So I mean, beyond the like obvious Call of Duty, right?
That's the only real motivation he had. He loved Call of Duty and was like, "I'm gonna do it.
I'm doing it. Yeah, sign me up." No, like I mean, Tears of the Sun and Call of Duty may have had something to do with it. Freaking awesome movie, right? But at a
Bruce Willis on that one, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. But anyways, and then I just, you know, I was like, well, you know, I'm an able-bodied dude, like. There's a war going on. Like, this is my dude. For all the people that can't fight, you know, for all the women and children back here, and for even the dudes that wish they could that can't, like, someone's got to go do it. Like, here I am, you know, like this.
Send me.
Yeah, literally, man.
Yep.
And so that was part of it. And then the other part was the fact that my dad is, like, the most ruthless, hardcore dude that I've probably ever met. He's, like, the most intense, like calling him on Father's Day is like getting ready to get beat down. Like, and I love it. It's our love language. You know what I mean? And so, you know, but I just know it's going to be like, you know, like, son, how much money have you saved? Are you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What are you doing here in your life? You know, and he's just like hardcore, but that's how we like get down.
He's all dialing the number, and he's like,
literally, bro, this is real.
I'm like, you got this. You got this. You got this.
Literally procrastinating for like hours. Like, I gotta call my dad, man.
His dad picks up the phone. I don't got this. I don't.
Yeah, literally, man. Like,
sorry, I dropped the call.
Nope. Not ready.
So real, man. And so, you know, but yeah, man. So then I was like, well, how am I ever gonna be a man? You know, like, I need to settle this trash. And for me, it was like, there's nothing I can do that's gonna be as legit as my pops. So then I was like, you know what? I've got an idea. I'm gonna go to war. Ain't no one gonna be able to say nothing to me after that. So that was part of it, and it really helped me settle that, you know, for the sake of my ego and my own deliverables that I can carry through life that no one can take from me. And it's actually given me huge dividends back in that area. So then, to answer your question more directly, I walk into my little lunchroom, you know, my little cafeteria at high school, and I got an Army recruiter, and I got a Marine recruiter. And I walk up to the Army recruiter first, and I'm like, hey, man. I'm like, just tell me the truth. I'm like, is it? I wanna join the most like hardcore entry level enlisted thing I can. I want it to be hard. I want it to be stuff that other people can't do. I want it to be a challenge, and I want people to see me and respect what I've done instantly. You know, just from the get go. I was like, Army or Marine Corps, and he looked at me. And he looked to the left.
He just pointed. Right. He was just
literally. He basically was like, if you tell anyone, I'll deny it. And he was just like, hey man, you probably just go to the Marine Corps.
He just gave you the eye thing, like the.
Yeah, literally, man. He just was like, you should probably just go to the Marine Corps. And I walked right over to my dude Hopkins. You know, I walked over to the Marine Corps recruiter and was just like, all right, sign me up, infantry. Which then, of course, I met him at Hennessy's like almost a decade later, you know, like 5 years later after I did all my trash. And he's like, Rodgers, I remember you. And he's like in his Marine Corps uniform. He's like, hey, man. And he's all drunk. And he's like, I'm getting ready to go to combat. And I'm like, looking at him like, you sent me. And he's all like, you know, he's like, hey. And then he asked the question, the Buddhist McBuddhist question. And he's like, hey, bro. So what's combat like? I'm just like,
you're like, this shit has come full. This shit came full circle.
Oh
man! I was like, I can't make this up. And I told him the same thing that my seniors told me, man. I was like, it's a mind job, man. I was like, I can tell you everything. I can tell if I could tell you and I told him what he told me about boot camp. I was like, it's a mind job. That's what my seniors told me. And then I was like, if I told you everything that was going to happen to you, it wouldn't prepare you for what's about to happen. That's what he told me about boot camp. And I was like, you just make sure that you do everything you can to get you and your dudes back, and you do everything you can to make sure that you have integrity with what you do over there, and you'll be all right. Or you'll die, you know, like I ain't got a crystal ball, man, but this is the game we're playing, bro. You know.
Well, war's not a social experiment. And I think I had a talk with my buddy. He's still in the Navy, and we talked about this the other day. And like, it's just becoming a social experiment these days. And it's
Very
like people are missing the point that like war's violent. You know, war's
that's the ugliest thing humanity has to show.
Like
that's the ugliest side we got.
You know, and it's kind of sad seeing what's happening. You know, with the military because. You know, at the end of the day, I accept everyone for who they are. That's cool, but we don't need to make a point out of it when you're going to war because 100%. Your enemy is there to kill you.
Yeah,
and
they don't care.
Yeah, they don't really. They don't
care.
They don't care what gender you are. They don't care what background you are, what color you are. They're there to kill you. And people are losing sight of like the reality of what war is. You know, and for you guys that went over there and you saw how nasty the enemy is, like all my grandparents and stuff like that prior to me, World War II and stuff. They saw what the enemy looks like on the other side. Yeah. And what is it, like General Tsao has that great quote about like knowing your enemy. And if you can know your enemy, you know yourself and you can face 100 battles.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
real, man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what happened to this part of masculinity and war and why we're like trying to glorify it these days. And we're trying to make it this like pretty little social experiment in high school. But it's like, that's not what happens when you pump over there. Like, no, you're not going to see that.
But do you think like once you're thrown into it, do people just change like because you see the gnarliest side of things?
Yeah, I mean,
or are there those people that kind of like they hold their values and it's just like you can tell they struggle over there?
I'll tell you this. Yeah, there's both.
Yeah.
But I didn't experiment with myself. I'd say two things that what you guys just said. One, and I had to get in a bunch of shootouts in my psychology, like when I was going to school, because cats they be trying to challenge me and they try and jump me, but I'm like totally cool with arguing and like I dig it, and I stay calm, you know. So they just it sucked for them. But if I'm going to war, I need the most violent and physically potent people with me. This isn't like kickball, you know what I mean? Like, and I gave him that analogy that I read in a blog somewhere. It was like, hey, dude, and I burned the class to the ground with this, and I was like. You think about your loved ones. I was like, think about someone you love, your family, your kid, you know, your mom, your dad. All right, they're at the end of a football field. They just got shot by a sniper and they're bleeding out. And somebody's got 2 minutes to get down there. They got a femoral bleed or something. And someone's got 2 minutes to get down there, get them, pull them back 100 yards and get them to safety so you can save their life. You got yourself a pink door and you got yourself a blue door. Good to go. And the only thing you know about these two doors is on the blue door is a dude and the pink door is a chick. You know what I'm saying? Which door are you going to pick? Go. And it's like, you're going to pick the freaking blue door. That's what you're going to do. You're going to pick the door that has the highest probability of a dude who can bring the most strength to bear 100% of the time. And I just look at him and be like, the reality of this game is if I decide to do something in this classroom and it's all like chicks in here right now because it was psychology and it was all chicks in there.
I was going to say, you probably had like some chicks in there that were like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and I was like, there's nothing anyone can do. I have complete mastery of this whole entire room right now because there's nothing you can all try to stop me. No one can stop me here. I was like,
well, and you're not trying to be disrespectful about it. You're like, dude, this is just I went through it. Like that's just how it is.
And the other thing is, so it's like this isn't a social experiment. I feel so bad for dudes that are getting this stuff rammed down their throat. I got out of the Marine Corps because stuff was getting soft, and I was like, I can't take these dudes to war. Like I can't go to war with these dudes because I can't train them hard the way my seniors trained me, which was the only thing that really gave me a fighting chance once the killing started. And now I sit here. You know, and I look at the world, and anyways, it's what happens with societies. But the other answer I had to that question, you're asking me about, does war change people? You know, that quote, war makes men into dogs. I'm sitting here in this little village, right? And I'm a squad leader, so I got my boys out. We're clearing houses. We're doing whatever we do. And I remember just being like, hey, real quick, like, what if they told you if you murdered everyone in this village, you could go home right now? Like, done. Kill everyone. You're going home right now. Would you do it?
And you were just like, yep.
And I literally was like, I was off safe. Like,
you're like, right now?
Like, yep.
You want me to do it right now?
I was like, yeah, literally. I was like, hold my beer. You know,
hold my beer.
Literally was just like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I wouldn't even think about it. Like, are you kidding me? And then I was like,
dude, that's so gnarly to think about.
It's crazy. And because I remember like trying to like kind of resist the answer, but like the reality was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember thinking about
Well, there's the right answer and there's reality, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, you didn't want to be that dog like you're talking about, but in the back of your mind, you're like, absolutely.
Yeah, get to go home, be done with this trash, like get all my dudes home safe, get myself home safe, get to see home, have all my digits. Like, yeah, dude. And I remember being like, that's savage. And then I remember being like, ask yourself that question again when you actually get back to Conus and you're like civilized again, right? So then I get back into the States, and I remember thinking about that and being like, man, like, you must have been in a pretty crazy state. And you do, like, you have to become, if you're gonna kill dragons, you gotta be a beast. Like, that's why these dudes run around with their tap out shirts and their 5'11" stuff. Like, I sometimes look at them and I'm just like, homie, like, when's the last time you pushed yourself? Like, when's the last time, like, you saw your soul?
Wait, so those dudes aren't badass? Wait,
like, some of them are, I don't know. But at the same time, I'm just like, dude, and people that like want, like, they're talking about, yeah, well, you know, Civil War, like, we're gonna be ready. I'm like, homie, you do not want that trash. You have no idea how horrible
the keyboard warriors and the gravy seals out there.
Gravy seals.
Gravy seals, yeah.
Like,
I wish someone would.
Yeah,
you know?
like, no,
okay.
you don't wish anyone would
Yeah.
do anything. You want to watch freaking Lost tonight. That's what you want to do, dude. And
Hey, shout out Lost. That's a good show.
yeah, right. And I'm like, and I remember, and then I went back to combat, and I remember doing the same experiment, and I was like, yeah, dude, I'd smoke everyone here, and I would just go home, and I would just, you know, but I mean, ultimately, there were times where I had to make those decisions, where I was like, dude, I'm pretty, I mean, this isn't quite a green light, but like, these dudes just tried to kill us, and like, I could kill these dudes, and it would be right, like, in the eyes of humanity, but on the lines of like, ROEs, I probably shouldn't do this. And then I remember being like, and then all my little dudes, like in my squad, you know, like, they'd have to live with what we did. And it's like a little questionable. And then I remember being like, nah, don't. And by the grace of God, you know, I chose not to do it ultimately. But I just remembered that experiment. And I remember being like, this is some stuff that will change you. And
You're playing devil's advocate against yourself.
100%,
yeah.
man. That introspection is powerful. And if you look up online, and I remember this, and I remember this walking around the base a lot, you know, when you see the guys that come back and you see the like normal dudes, you know, there's a completely different look in their eyes, and you can Google it online, like the faces of guys before and after combat.
I've actually seen like a guy does like a black and white. He did black and white photos of people that were like about to be deployed, and then when they came back, dude, it looks like two different people.
100%.
Or it's literally
or like snipers, you know, like that they've been on scope for 4 or 5 hours, and you see what their eyes look like when they're coming off scope, and like,
well,
that's
dude, could you imagine just
gnarly...
being like literally everything, and you're just like, whatever moves, it's gone.
Yeah, well, you're in a different part of your brain that for so long, and so. Yeah, bro, it changes you. And like we were like animalistic. And I remember before the Haditha massacre, you know, they were talking about like, should we go back and shower and like clean up? And you know, one guy was like, one of the, you know, I remember like the first sergeant was like, yes, get the dudes back, get them cleaned up, because when dudes go too long in the field, they lose their humanity. And they lose their value for human life. They become animalistic. And then the other dude was like, yeah, the lieutenant was like, yeah, we can maybe do a couple more missions right quick. It'll be fun. And
you boys all good over there?
yeah, literally, man. And crazy stuff started happening because dudes didn't get back. And
dudes are foaming from the mouth.
Yeah,
like,
man.
I'll do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Too much adrenaline pumping through their brain. Their brain's just in fight or flight. They're not thinking about anything else at that point.
And you just don't care. It's a different level of misery, too. It's that's what perplexes me about the veteran situation. It's just, I understand it, but if we could just not forget where we come from and what we've been through. Like, every day is a freaking easy day if you can just remember the trash you've survived and the dragons you've killed, man. Because that's what I fall back on when I'm like, oh, this is so hard, you know. And it's like, nah, dude, you're not cold, you're not wet, you've showered, you know, you haven't not showered for 2 weeks. No one's trying to kill you, homie. You got to try not to be fat right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got all the food you want. Like, you got relationships. Like,
it's like that basic grace that we've been given that we take for granted every single day. Like, we miss the basic needs in life that we have every single day in America.
Yeah.
That you don't realize, like, once you leave this country, you don't have that anymore. You don't. And I've had that on so many levels, and like being downrange for months on end, going through different countries from first world to third world, and you're popping in and out of cultures all the time.
You just see what it's like.
Yeah, and then you come home and you're just like sitting here looking at people, what they're complaining about, and you're like, dude, what's wrong with you right now? Like, you literally have nothing to be pissed off about in life. Like, you have so much, and you're just
we got it pretty good over here.
It's not
bad.
It's like,
it's not bad.
It's so gnarly. I mean, like, you go from like countries we're in war in, and then you go to countries that are at war with each other.
That's even grosser.
And that's a whole nother thing, right? I mean, like, I've gone to so many villages, and there's like, we don't know if Boko Haram's going to come through today and just wipe all of us out, you know? And like, they're like, they're pushing like 20 miles to the north. Like, you're like, wow, there's like legit people that want to kill you within a 20-minute drive from us right
And it
now.
Sounds like popcorn over there.
Yeah.
I hope the right side wins so we can live again.
And then you're like, and then you're sitting there at night. You're like, well, if I get stuck in country, like, where are we going? How are we getting out and stuff? Like, all this stuff becomes
you
real.
call him.
Now.
That's what you do.
And there's services out there like you guys. Global Guardian's another one that'll come out and hook you up and pull you out of countries and stuff on the executive side of this stuff.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that too. I mean, unless you got more going on. Sorry.
I mean, like, but battle or travel to third world countries or travel to conflict areas and stuff like that will always change your outlook on life. But you got to take it for the better good, right? And I've always said I'm wired wrong because I like those countries in general.
I love them.
I love the people. I love the culture. I love everything you experience there. I think
real.
It's so real. And, from like a spiritual side, like spiritual warfare is like totally real in these
Very
countries.
real.
Like, very, very real.
And
that'll wake your eyes up to a whole nother side of life that you've never experienced in your life because
100%.
like the devil doesn't really need to be in America. He has every other distraction here.
Flesh destroys America.
Yeah,
he doesn't
right.
have to do anything.
You go to other countries, he's got to work, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't have those distractions. Like you see some evil stuff going on in the world.
I've seen some evil things.
Dude, and I mean, so when you came home, like, did you ever suffer with PTSD after being in combat? Like, were there days that were hard that you had to overcome, or like, were you able to turn it off and kind of? Everyone's different. Every warrior's different. Like, what was your struggle on that side?
And then real quick, like I saw some statistic, like only 6% of Americans even have a passport. Like if you don't have a passport, you don't get to say this country sucks. You have no freaking idea.
You have no idea what everything else is like.
If you've never left Orange County, you have no.
You don't get to say. You're like a teenager that's lived in their parents' house their entire life and thinks it sucks.
Bro, I've been to Cabo, dude. I know what it's like, man.
Yeah, like
I remember you posted something about that
man.
this morning. How like other people are telling people what they need to believe in life. You're like, who are you to tell me? Like, who are you?
What my experience is like.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of here. No, man. So just wanted to make sure people hear that. Like, if you look and you don't have a passport, you don't get to say America sucks. All right. Anyways, so the other thing, dude, like with the PTSD.
Quick plug. Shout out America.
Yeah, right. America. My struggle was a little different. I think as they don't make humans the way they used to, like men have been chopping each other into pieces since pimpin's been pimping. You know what I mean? Like this is just kind of like what we do. Like we kill each other and we make more of each other, right? Mike Pannone, right? 2021. But like, if you follow Mike Pannone, shout out to him. He's like one of my big bros. Like he's savage. He's a living legend.
That was the greatest quote I've ever. We chop them up, make more. All right.
Yeah, that's what we do, right? So, so I think tools. Inside of our culture, like psychologically, the toolkits these dudes are approaching these equations like combat with and walking away from them are already very depleted. Like they're crude. They're not very robust psychological toolkits. So they're going through life like live in America, like, who messed up my freaking Frappuccino, and then all of a sudden it's like, yo, like we smoked a bunch of people and, some of them were innocents and I don't know how to reconcile this. Or, because I did life coaching after I got out of Marine Corps for vets, or it's I have trauma in my past and now I have a socially acceptable outlet to have to let those symptoms out, like to get that stuff out of my system. And so now I have the excuse of PTSD, which isn't an excuse, but like I have PTSD that can really like validate me actually trying to find coping mechanisms and self-soothe. And that is another huge thing that I found when I started working with vets. And I was like, after we worked together for a while, I was like, so you're really just messed up about something that happened when you were like 5 or 6 or like as you were growing up. That's really what we're going to now talk about, So there's a category of that's in there for sure. And then there's even more, it's exacerbated by society being like, poor you, here we go with the victim cards again. Like, like even getting out, they were like, hey man, you went on all these missions. Like, do you have PTSD? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And they're like, like, but do you have PTSD? Like, I feel bad for you. I'm like, don't feel bad for me. I'm tight. Like, I'm strong. Like, I'm freaking not having PTSD. And they're like, well, like, if you have PTSD, we'll pay you if you have PTSD. I'm like, no, I don't have PTSD. I'm fine.
I don't have creepy. PTSD. Yeah. How much though?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm like, no, just get away from me. And
you're creepy.
Like, yeah, you're creepy. And they're like, we'll pay you. You get paid. I'm like, no, I don't want to get paid, man. Leave me alone. I'm fine. I'm going to go find my stuff. And that's kind of how it was getting out, And then you get into the civilian population and people are like, poor you. So if you you lost your identity because you were at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like had all your needs met, had social belonging, all these things, and then you get out and you have what I call the atrophy of identity that takes place, is what I talk about in my book. And you're like looking in the mirror 4 or 5 years after you got out, and like the you that's looking back at you is like this fatter, weaker, more like the atrophy of being a civilian has really eaten you alive. And the former you wouldn't even respect who you see. Your wife's tired of your military stories because she's heard them a million times, and you're just fat, like you're just off now, you know what I mean? Like, and you don't respect yourself. This is what I think gets dudes to tap out before they eat their pistols. But as for me, man, my PTSD was very different. So I had a pretty robust toolkit because my dad been like punching me in the face in the dojo for a while, like when I was little, like it was and it was all love. Like I love the man. Like I
Byron grew up legit Cobra Kai.
You know what I mean?
Woke up in the morning to a punch in the face.
His dad actually was Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Like this dude, man. He's it's funny. It's funny because it's kind of like and
he's like, it's funny because it's true.
And he would be like, I'd go visit the Bahamas, and my pops would be like, before you watch TV, son, and it's summer, like I just want to play around. And he'd be like, you gotta swim 100 laps in the pool, 500 sit-ups, run on the treadmill for 30 minutes, and it was something 100 push-ups. And he's like, because you're getting fat and soft living with your mom. You know what I mean? And then, he'd call me and be like, hey, son, can you see my face through the phone? Can you see my face through the phone? Are you doing your push-ups and your sit? You know what I mean? Like, this is me. You know what I mean? So I had a pretty crazy, like...
He's like, I don't even want to FaceTime my dad because he's literally going to throw punches through the phone.
Yeah, so but he was also one of the most successful businessmen in the Bahamas, according to one newspaper when we were young. Like, he got after it, He
is he still in the Bahamas?
Yeah, he's still down there. He's still
just
around.
ripping it up.
And Father's Day's coming up, no, but I love him. But so we, for my PTSD, it was like kind of the opposite. So I always knew I was a warrior growing up. So I felt oddly really at home in combat and in the misery of it. So when I got back, it was like being a Lamborghini forced to drive in a school zone, like ultra, and this a lot of dudes happens to, ultra disenchanted with life. Like this civilian life is like being forced to watch a cartoon forever. Nothing's even close to as stressful as it was in combat. So it's like you just lose taste, like
like you peaked pretty much, and everything else is just downhill.
Like PTSD is realizing you'll never be that cool again. Like you'll never like PTSD is realizing like this is it. Like this is like I gotta go find fulfillment out of this. You know what I mean? Like I'm never gonna hit like 170 again ever. Yeah, So I was more on the side of like dopamine addiction. So then I got out and I was like, well, I got freedom now. So like I got into drugs. I started like doing all kinds of stuff. And then I got right into EP. So like I was making 6 figures at 21 years old, traveling the world on private jets at all the baddest hotels all around the world and all these crazy places and access to everything I could want, So mine was more like, we're going to go hard, brother. You know what I mean? So
you're just looking to fill that void almost like you got to be doing something that just gets you going.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just going ham all the time. And then I started to realize like, hey, dude, like, something's a little off. Like, it's awesome that you're this awesome and like you don't need to sleep for like 4 or 5 days and you're 100% functional and 100% like able to get after it.
Like maybe this isn't healthy though.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, like, but you're, and so that was my come down. It was like, now I'm like totally was excited that I could like operate on like 2 hours of sleep for 4 days and like travel the world and all this stuff because it felt like more like home. It was like normal for me. And then I started to realize like, hey man, like you got to like kind of rehab and slow it down. So like after like 7 years of that craziness, and I never went too deep into the abyss. You stare into the abyss long enough, it stares back into you. And I'm like, I would dabble with things. I went pretty hardcore into some stuff, but I always kind of like kept myself off the edge. And then I finally was like, dude, I got to move to Florida. I'm going to reset. And, so my version of PTSD was just trying to go hard all the time and I had trouble reconciling myself with the pace of civilian life, which then culminated into the tools that got me through, which was finding my new fight. And I'd say to this day, part of my jet engine is freaking PTSD. Like part of what makes me dangerous is the fact that I'm like, I'm finna work on this purpose that I got. And guess what? I don't gotta sleep, homie. And guess what? I like I'm literally like up at 4 a.m. shooting videos, like ultra, like shooting like hours of video, like working out for like a couple hours, like, and it's all just driving me. Like it's like the alchemy of that warrior engine. And so that's why I teach vets. I'm like, dude, you got to find your new fight. Like, a warrior without a war loses purpose. Everything in our eye shot has purpose. Every single thing in this room has purpose. Anything that doesn't have purpose in this room, you threw away before I got here, or you're going to throw away right after. It gets misused, abused, or eliminated. And so once I found that new fight and that new purpose, which was trying to acquire freedom, I went after it I still go after it freakishly. And I am like, I got to hit this harder than I ever hit anything fighting for Uncle Sam or anyone, because I got to do this for me. If I can become the best version of me, I can serve the world on the highest level I can serve the world. And that brings glory to God for putting me here. And I can't let the grace that has been given to me be in vain, because I almost died out there multiple times. Got hit by about 5 IEDs, you know, like that counted, you know, there was other bombs and stuff going off around me. And I got hit with 60-some pounds of homemade explosives directly. I had an out-of-body experience, prayed to Jesus, came back from it. And like, so I can't just be like a dude who's like kind of cool and like kind of like cool and like died. You know what I mean? Like, I have to make a contribution.
Wait.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, are we just gonna skip past the whole like fucking? I just got homemade explosives tossed
So where was
at
this
me?
at?
Yeah, man.
Like they were like, "Hey, you want some candy?" Boom. What's
Was
up?
this first pump or second pump?
Second pump. Yeah, second pump. I got hit by 5 different IEDs between the 2 deployments. The second deployment, you know, like I got in enough blasts where I actually couldn't complete my last mission, and they were like, we're gonna have to fly Rodgers out. We can't have him go on the last mission because we're probably gonna get attacked. And if we get hit, like, we'll be liable for allowing him to stay in combat after getting hit this many times. So that was really upsetting to me. But so getting hit with 62 pounds of explosives, like that ride.
Dude, you're like the ultimate like hockey guy. Like, no miss shifts, bro. Like, I don't care. I just got rocked. I'm still going out.
100%, dude.
So I gotta
Jesus.
the out of body experience.
Yeah.
I gotta ask about that.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
It was different than you'd think. I mean, if you'd think of anything about how that it goes down, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, from things that, you know, from a biblical standpoint, like Paul writes about, you know, like having the thorn in his flesh and stuff like that. Like, do you have anything post from that bother, like, mentally, knowing that you've had that experience, or like what was like going through that experience kind of thing? Like, what was it, like a dream or a daze?
Kind of.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was pissed. We're rolling out on a mission, and I remember just being upset about something, and I'm singing a song. I can't sing here, Semper Fi. And I'm like singing this song to my dudes, and we're all like rolling down the street, and my doc's like, "Hey, Rodgers, like, you should probably sit back in your seat, because if we get rocked today, which we're probably getting a rock today, you don't want to be like by the edge." Yeah. So then I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, Doc." I'm like, "If anyone hits us, we're killing everybody." And he's like, "All right."
Are you in a Hummer?
Rodgers. No, I was in a 7-ton. If I was in a Hummer, I wouldn't be here, man. And I had another experience with that too, where I was like, yeah, well, I can tell that one later. But I'm sitting here, and yeah, man, we're rolling down the street, and I hear my buddy Foster, who'd been hit by, like, he legit took 10 IEDs out there, and thank God he's okay and he's made it, but I've seen that guy get launched 30, 40 feet in the air. I saw him get launched one time with an IED that I was supposed to be in, and he left my vision. And I legit, when he landed, I almost shot him, because I thought we were I thought we were getting ambushed, bro. Like, I thought, like, when him in the engine
I shouldn't be laughing, but oh my God.
Dude, I shouldn't be either, but what the fuck, man?
You know? Yeah, man. And when he landed, I legit almost shot him, because I thought we were getting ambushed, like a near ambush. And he landed, then the engine block landed. It was crazy. And I can go into that story later. But, like, so out of body experience, I'm sitting here, I'm singing a song. Foster comes over the radio. You know, and he's just like, Silverback, I'm going to stop. I got a weird feeling. Now, Foster's been hit so many times. He's got like a sixth sense. Like, he just knows when it's about to go down. And I'm like, yo, Roger that, dude. Like, do whatever you got to do. He stops, and right as he rolls to a stop, I'm like in this black room. And I just remember being like, man, this is chill. Like, and I'm just like looking around, and it's like, I'm just relaxed, and I'm fine. And I'm just like not worried about anything. Like, it was like relieving. You know, and I just remember being kind of like, man, this is tight. Like, this is way better than what was going on. And then I remember being like...
and then you're like, something's not right.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, something was
like,
going on,
this is really
though.
chill.
Yeah.
Like, too chill. And I literally remember being like, what was my last thought? And I just knew I could call up my thoughts. And I was just like, what was my last thought? And I was like, oh, and I saw it like in the Matrix, like this green cursor, like MS-DOS computers, like back in the day. It was weird. And it was like blinking, and it was like, why is the water cooler trying to come up my ass? It was like, why is the water cooler trying to come up my butt? And I remember seeing that, like, what? Like water cooler trying to come up my... And then I was like... oh, I was sitting on a water cooler. And I'm like remembering this all like Cali dude-ish. Like, I was sitting on a water cooler. Okay, cool. And then I remember being like, because I was on patrol in Iraq. And then I was on patrol and I was like, okay. And I wasn't upset at all. And then I realized, and I was like, I was on patrol in Iraq and I got blown up. I was like, I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq right now. I died. And I'm having this whole realization. And it was like the deepest sorrow I've ever felt in my entire life. God. This put gas in my tank, man. I still to this day like work because of this feeling. It was just like boom, hit me in the stomach as hard. I just felt the deepest sorrow ever. And I just remember being like, I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq. I died. And the finality of it was just so soul crushing because I was like, dude, I'm 19. I haven't lived deliberately yet. Like I haven't even opened my eyes yet. Like I haven't gone ham. I've just been drifting through this life. Like I haven't done anything of meaning. I've had zero awareness of my life, you know? And that's when I started to really be like, oh my gosh. And then I started to see my family and I'm like, seeing different people, like where they're at, like almost like what they're doing at that time, you know? And I'm like seeing my mom like washing dishes and my girlfriend and my dad. And my dad, the thing with my dad was when I was graduating high school, he came to my graduation and he was like, you know, him and my mom had this master plan to send me to the Bahamas so I could learn business with my pops. And I was like, I'm going to the Marine Corps. And they were like, no, you're not. And then I blink and I'm hanging off the balcony at this nice hotel in Gig Harbor, Washington. And my dad's looking at me and he's like, why aren't you scared? And I'm like, well, because you're either going to drop me off the balcony or I'm going to the Marine Corps. And he was like, okay. And he like pulls me back over and he's just like, I support you, but don't die. And I just remember him being like, don't die. And I remember being like, okay, you know, I'll do my best. And that really, really, really upset me that I was like, I failed everyone. I failed everyone. I was so sad. And then, you know, like I'm seeing everyone. And then just like some cheesy Touched by an Angel story, I get to my grandma. And grandma's like been saying this to me for whenever, my whole life. And she's like, Byron, if you ever something stronger than you, you just say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. By the third time, it'll go away. And I'm like, and so my buddies still make fun of me to this day. And I'm sitting here in like the undercarriage of this 7-ton that I got rocked. I was sitting on top of one of those big Gatorade coolers that, you know, like you have football games. And I'm just inside the underbelly of this vehicle, like curled up in the fetal position, just Jesus, 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 trying to like come back. And I remember at some point in all of it, I see my buddy Wellerman like looking at my body and I'm like looking at the side of his head. And I wasn't able to look down at my body, but I just remember looking at the side of his head and him being like, oh my gosh, my buddy Hebert, who saw me get blown, he was staring at me when it happened. He's like, the last thing I saw was you on the roof, like with your legs up by your head, like sandwiched in half, just like totally like
just lawn chair.
Yeah, like up on top of the roof and with this look of surprise on your face. And then I'm just sitting there and I'm like, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And then I'm like back in my body and I open my eyes and then I can't move and I just keep on praying. And I remember being like, if I get to come back, I'm going to go so hard I'm going to go so hard. I will die going hard if I get to come back because I'm not going to let this be in vain. Like I can't let that happen again because I know what it's like to die and to be like, yo, did I even like, what was it all for? Like I know that feeling, and that's part of why I do all the motivational stuff, and no one watches it, but I just keep doing it when I post it because it's like you just got to realize, man, like this life is such a miracle. It is such a miracle, and it's such a gift. And I know what that's gonna feel like when I'm dying again on my deathbed, and I'm not gonna let that feeling creep up on me again. It's gonna be like, nah, dude, if I die, I get hit by a car on the way home. I went ham for however much more time I got, and yeah, man, I got it back in my body. I kept on praying, and then I got mastery of my body again, and things started moving. I like felt myself come back online. I was pissed. Like,
did it come in like? I mean, like I've crashed on a mountain bike and hit my head so hard I couldn't hear for a second.
Yeah.
And it was like a full movie where it was like the like screeching like, and then it kind of came back. Did you get that at all? Or was it just more like it was just back?
When I got blown up and caught some concussions, that's like, and then you can hear everything. That happened for sure. This was more like turning on like a computer, like everything powered back up, like all systems.
Like you just had full restart.
Yeah, literally.
Control,
it was like my engine started back up and everything started back up, and then I got to move and I was pissed.
You had to type in your login again. And you're
like, literally, man. And then this like righteous anger came over me, like we're not gonna die here. And then that's when I got up and the back door was jammed shut on us, and I kicked the stairs back out that was jammed shut, and then I blacked out again. Apparently, I jumped like 15 feet out the back of the
superhuman. You were like, just like on one.
Tyrone Bigham's crack.
Samson, dude.
Yeah,
you had the power of Samson over you. Dude.
No, man. And, like I weighed 300 pounds, totally kitted up with rockets and C4 and all that stuff. And then I was I fought at 190s, 200 pounds. So jumping like off a 7-ton with all that trash, didn't care. Woke up like 30 yards away in a field. So I like blacked out. Woke up like 30 yards away in a field, looked back at my dudes and was like, you guys are still in that, like in the vehicle, yelled at them, pulled them out. And then this was one of the times when we almost smoked some dudes that like it was a little questionable because then we assaulted a shop that was next door. The whole entire city was quiet, like the whole entire city, everyone knew we were coming, so they left. And of course, when you're looking at fighting those dudes, like if they're wearing their like sheep herder stuff, it's like, all right, cool. Like maybe you're a sheep herder, but if they're wearing like tennis shoes and like sweatsuits and tracksuits and jeans, like you're moosh, bro. Like you're
anybody in the Adidas tracksuit, you're like, you're done, bro.
You're done.
You're gone.
We get them. So we pulled like these 6 mams out, these military age males, and we line them up, and they're the only people in this village. And
they didn't leave there looking for a fight.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. They were looking for a fight, and they'd just blown us up. And I remember pulling them out, and I was like, because it was definitely a victim. It was a command detonated device because we rolled to a stop, and it blew up the back of the vehicle, so it wasn't like victim initiated. And yeah, man, I'm like, and you guys speak English? Like, who speaks English? And this dude looks at me with like a Boston accent. It's like, I don't speak English, and like smiles at me. And there was a moment where my dudes looked at me and they're like, get the drop weapons out the back. We got some
You're
AKs.
like, you're going first.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, we can just smoke these dudes. We know they did it. No one else is here. These guys are dressed as fighters. Like, just smoke these dudes and like drop AKs on them and like let's just like call it a day and like go have a ham sandwich back and like eat some memories. And I remember being like, and I'm looking at these dudes. I'm looking at this guy, and these guys are on their knees, and they're looking at us. And my dudes are like banged up. We're all banged up. Dudes are bleeding and like trying to hold tears back. And you get blown up, like it's emotion. Like you get this flood of emotions. And I'm just like,
I could imagine.
Yeah, I think that's. I
don't think
you're allowed to cry on that.
I think you can cry on this one.
Yeah.
You can get a little emotional on this one.
We'll never admit it, but
yeah.
So
I'll give you a pass on that one.
Yeah, right.
You're
right.
good.
And so I just remember like looking in the eyes of my youngest dudes and just being like, if we smoke these dudes like this, they're gonna have to live with it. And I was like, I'll be fine. And I was like, but I don't want to make a command decision that these other cats may have to live with. And so I remember being like, well, all right, gents, have a nice day. We'll see you again on the battlefield. And we let him roll, because detaining him is a whole nother long story about that. But yeah, man, we let those dudes roll. I know I made the right choice. But that was one of those times when I was like, this is real gray.
You're like, let me turn down the savage mode here. We are still human. We're still human here.
But I was like, I'll sleep fine. But nah.
I'll sleep fine.
Dude,
but I can't let my boys live like this, right?
Gnarly.
Right, yeah, I don't want to make that choice for everybody right now, basically.
Yeah. Dude.
So, I want to get into the security side of things too. So you got out and immediately went into that.
Yeah, man. Like I was like, what am I gonna do? And I remember praying, and that same voice that saved my life in Iraq multiple times was like, "Yo, go bounce at this bar at Hennessy's Tavern in Dana Point, and you're gonna become a bodyguard. You're gonna travel the world." And I was like, "All right, cool." I know that voice. Like I was like, I know what I'm doing. So
You're like, good fucking choice, voice. I like that.
yeah,
What you got going there?
right. And I remember, my girlfriend at the time was like, you can't be a bouncer. Like, I was like, yeah, this is a death sentence for you. But, I was like, like when, I feel like God tells me to do something, I know I just know. I've never had to be like, what am I going to do? For some reason, I just have always known, and he's always just guided me. And yeah, I go there, I bounce for like 3 months. And a couple of dudes are like, hey man, have him do it. Next thing you know, I'm like, have him do what? And this dude's like, Luke is like, go get these permits. Give me a call back in 2 weeks. I'll show you how to make a lot more money doing what you're doing. I blink. I'm on Rodeo Drive, doing my first job interview, trying to get into a jewelry store that has no door handle because you got to be somebody to get in there. Riding in the back of a Bentley down Rodeo Drive, with some client talking to me, and I'm doing my first job interview. And then the rest is history. Blink. And we spent about 2.5 weeks in the sky in private jets that first year, and that was learning how to drink out of a fire hose at 21 in the EP game. Yeah.
So, I mean, are you allowed to like talk about
He's like, how much of this can we?
Well, that's what I mean. I know there's probably some confidential stuff you're not really allowed to maybe talk about as much. But
No, there's some of that. But I can talk about things, like stuff that's happened. I can talk, but I'll never talk about my clients and stuff.
I mean, let's get into that then. What was one of the gnarlier things that's happened on that aspect of things?
So on that aspect of things, there's just like two stories that kind of pop out. Was fortunately it's never gotten like Black Hawk Down crazy, but in the Congo things were nuts.
DRC?
Yeah. I don't even remember at this point. Yeah, we went to the Congo, and we went to actually in Dominican Republic things got a little weird too. Because every once in a while, back in the day, like years ago, like you show up on a detail, and when they try to give you guns at the airport just because you need to have them,
shit's about to get real.
It's game on type detail, right? So it's I've been on things like that have happened, but you're driving back from a venue and you're doing the police escort and not the police escort, the private security escort, and these dudes were savages. Like we got dudes on monster on Buell dirt bikes, like kicking people's doors, getting them off the road, and it's just crazy. And see a police roadblock up ahead, and my driver's not slowing down, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you doing?
He's like, we're not stopping.
He's like, we're not stopping. I'm like, first vehicle rolls up, pushes the cop car out of the way. And we go around, we fly through, and I'm like, what? Like, you're gonna get me in trouble, bro. And they're like, that is not the cops. They're like, that's not the cops. Are they chasing us? And I'm like, no, they're not chasing us. He's like, exactly. And I'm like, I'm gonna shut up. I'm just gonna shut up.
You're like, oh, so you guys know what you're talking about? Cool.
Yeah, cool.
I'm just gonna sit in the back. Yeah, do what you're doing.
Get me back to my hotel. It's cool. Yeah. So things like that have happened. But then I'd say in Congo, man, like. There was a mission we went on that like got weird at a certain point. For whatever reason, I'm in a room full of money. Like I'm in a room.
Sick.
Yeah, right. And this is like a room like probably maybe a little bigger than this room, and I'm like up to my knees in money. And there's windows there's like the windows in the room don't have like curtains. We're in the Congo, so there's like sheets that are like torn, draping,
that are blowing in the wind,
and like
why is this window open first off?
Yeah, guys,
the hell's going on here?
Help me with this window. And like you got like the Congolese cops that are our escort looking back through the window. Like the money, and like it's like $250 American, but like there, you know what I mean? Like
you're like
this is lifetimes of money, you know, and like people are trying to count it and organize it, and sure enough, man, like mob starts forming, and we end up having to evacuate our principal, and we're fighting people off the car. We end up leaving most of the cash, like throwing trash bags of money out to get out of the area, kind of like Broken Arrow-ish type stuff.
Gotta love the Congo. Gotta love Africa.
But he was
it's its own beast.
TIA, man.
TIA is real, homie. Yeah. One of my buddies I was talking with said something that early on. Yeah, man. This other ultra legit dude that I was interviewing the other day, Max Siegel, and he's like, they have a saying in Africa. He's like, in America, you have watches, but here we have time. Yeah, it's a whole nother culture. Like nothing's on time. Like just chill out when you get there. And yeah, man, we end up fighting dudes off our vehicle, manning the rails, fighting our way through a crowd, flying to the FBO, you know, to catch our private jet. And on the FBO side, like they're getting hit up like every 30 minutes, like airport tax, $250. It's Monday tax, $250.
Oh, they'll straight up not let you leave sometimes. Like, then they're like, oh, yeah, you filed that permit 2 months ago? Yeah, we still haven't got your paperwork processed. Wow,
you got a beard?
Yeah,
guess what? You're not leaving.
And, like, airport security really is
Then you end up on some military base talking to some general because you're like, hey, I need to leave right now.
Yeah.
And you've had my permit. Oh, well, that's with the Minister of Aviation. Yeah, no, it's not. It's on your desk. I'm going to need you to sign this now because we're leaving. Like, I don't care what you're telling me right now.
We're
leaving.
Yeah, literally, man. And so we're flying we're basically eating to the airport to get out of this place. And airport security legit is like Blood Diamond the movie, 2 kids with ponchos and AKs. Like that was for this FBO, it was kids with ponchos and AKs that were airport security.
Congo,
yeah, and you're sitting here and we finally get on the airstrip. The pilot's losing his mind because they're just like basically sticking him up like every 30 minutes. Like,
they want more cash.
They want more cash. And then he's like, you know what? We're not paying you anymore. Take it up with Signature. Like, take it up with our handlers, basically. We jam everyone on the jet, and they're over there talking about, like, oh, you can't take off. We'll shoot you down, all this stuff. And he's just like, you don't have an Air Force. We're leaving, basically. And
hey, he's cruising down the runway, just flipping them off. Like,
literally. And we're just like, pucker up. Like, I hope they were joking, you know. And, you know,
hope they don't have an RPG on the ground. Yeah. They'll launch it at you right now.
Yeah. And so we got out of that situation.
Luckily, like, their military's not too strong over there, but they do have a lot of just black market weird weapons that they carry in the jungle. And that's the more stuff that you got to worry about. Like, well, maybe he does have a man pad. Like
these are also the same guys. These are also the same guys that handed like an orangutan an AK, you know, just to be like, hey, what is he gonna do?
I mean, I have a buddy that used to fly out of Africa. He's where was he from initially? I think he was from Botswana originally, but he flew for the Red Cross and stuff over there. But he got hijacked by these dudes one time. But 3 days prior to that, he has pictures with him with like the guys that hijacked him 3 days later.
Totally.
So, yeah,
100%.
they were his buddies 3 days ago, and then
100%.
hijacked him 3 days later.
That's
I mean,
the game.
you literally never know what you're going to end up with over there.
When
I can't tell you how many times like you get met by a general that just has his hand out like that, and like you don't give him a high five.
You're like, nope.
Well, yeah, or you pay him, or you get kidnapped.
Yeah.
Like the second you leave this country, like all these like little ideas about like emotions and like right and wrong and all this stuff, it's survival of the fittest. Like you either have money, or you have bigger guns, or you have superior strategy, or you're just a fat, sweet, beautiful American target. Yeah. You know.
The best part is like some of these generals, dude, they'll just have their hand out and then they'll sit there and smile at you, and you keep loading it up with money, and then
until they're good.
A little bit more.
Until they're like
a little bit more.
and then they'll give you the nod and they walk away.
Hey, but that's what I was gonna say.
dude,
When he was in the
gnarly.
money room, you're like, fuck, I wish I had my camera right now. You're like,
Fortunately, this is before the days of social media.
But
he's like the TikTok, like, I'm gonna take some. They're gonna know. No one's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Right? But yeah, like TIA is real. You know,
Yeah.
like there's been times in Africa and like different parts of different countries I've been in over there, and it's just like, this is Africa, man.
And you have to know how to do business in these
Yeah.
places. Like taking your little ideals of like, we won't pay, or we won't do, or we won't whatever. Like,
No.
cool, dude. Like when you're in the water with the sharks, you better learn how to deal with the sharks.
Yeah, feed them.
We don't
so they're not hungry.
negotiate.
Yeah,
so they're not hungry.
Yeah, because
We don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
Just kidding. How much you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta,
They'll tie you up, put a hood over your head pretty quick, and start running you in another direction. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff's real, and that stuff's like, again, that person that doesn't have a passport in America doesn't understand that this is real every single day life for these people in other countries.
And
Like,
you think our law enforcement's bad,
yeah,
and you think our law enforcement. And, like I think Mexicans are just dying laughing, dying.
yeah, they're seeing police brutality in America, and people south of the border are just like, really,
Yeah,
really,
like,
like we
you
just had
know.
a bunch of cops cops come in my house with
Yeah.
AKs and smoked half my family, and then dragged my dad out of the house.
Took my TV.
Yeah, and the police, the feds, and cops were getting shootouts on the streets, and like my Mexican homies be cracking up at us, man. And I sit there sometimes, and it's just you don't know no better, man. It's like the rich, spoiled kid that just doesn't know how good they've had.
Well, they've just never seen that other aspect. I mean, a lot of the times we're kind of shielded from it. We don't see that
American
side of
bubble,
stuff,
man.
right?
Yeah.
And so when it's like you get thrown into that, that's probably pretty eye-opening to be like, whoa.
I want to go home.
Yeah, I don't like this. This isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, like when every cop is for sale, and when, the cops have been so defunded that they're all vulnerable to being paid off, and they're looking for that. That's like how they make that's their side hustle.
Hey, our cops are pretty bad, but Venezuela, those guys are cool down there, right? They're not running their own people.
Those guys are chilling. They're all right.
They're not running their own people over in the streets.
Literally, man. It's like,
and that's why, like, every time you meet immigrants that come here,
they're like, this is freaking
they're like, this is
amazing.
great.
They're like, we're happy.
Yeah, they hear Americans like trying to tell them, yeah, communism and socialism is great. They're like, okay, yeah. Do you know where I just came from?
Yeah. Do you know what just happened back home?
Yeah.
It's I think the biggest enemy to our nation is just ignorance. It's the unstudied, lazy American. And it's a quality problem because you're being force-fed all this information from sources that have been your number one education. You're like, was another study that said like it was some small percentage of like 10% of Americans ever read a book after high school, and we know we didn't get educated in high school. Like that was not an education, right? So like,
dude, I use Spark Notes.
Yeah, right.
I nailed it.
You trigonometry twice today, but anyways,
right? And like television,
reading, what is that?
Yeah, television's been educating the public for all these years. It's where they've been getting their information. It's what's been shaping their fantasy world. If you research the origin of television, that's another crazy little rabbit hole to go down. That has to do with like propagandizing the world after World War II, and was maybe developed by scientists around the Nazis and things like that. And like you start to get into alpha state, and like when you're like see your homie sitting on the couch and like, hey, what's up, babe? And they're like sitting there staring at the TV, and they're in that little daze. Like when you start to look at like hypnosis, and it gets crazy because you realize that like it's not that you are agreeing with the things you're watching, but it is that your guard is down, and a lot of that imprints on the back of your mind.
It's like that little subliminal stuff that you don't even know is happening. But yeah.
And you ever wake up the next morning after watching an awesome movie, and you're like in the shower kind of like daydreaming about it as if it is an actual legit memory. Like your subconscious mind recorded all that as experiential information and wrote programming around a lot of that experience. It doesn't know the difference between dreaming and being awake. These states are literally so synonymous that your brain's like, oh yeah, it's like this almost the same thing.
We did that.
Yeah.
No worries.
And so they shape reality with TV, and so you start pumping out information. It literally is social engineering. And so someone who has no defenses for that and hasn't learned things on their own, has very little experiential information to combat that, or even studied to combat it, this is more than an easy target. They have no defenses. They're defenseless. And then critical thinking's been destroyed in our schools. People are handing out participation trophies and things like that. Like the American public is cycle, and in a lot of ways, I believe. You walk into a Walmart, you're gonna agree with me real quick. But I think that a lot of people nowadays have been so well taken care of and fed these fantasies and haven't done critical thinking. Have been spoon-fed so much trash that they are sitting ducks for what's happening to them through television and the media.
It's terrifying, and people don't actually understand or comprehend what's really happening in the world.
They can't even say
they have this false imagination of what reality is, and it's like, dude, like life's tough.
Yeah,
this isn't unicorns and rainbows every single day when we wake up. Like life's brutal, man.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around it. Like I get you want to accept this ultra reality in your head where everything smiles and rainbows and perfect and stuff, but like, dude, that ain't life. Like that's not the world we live in. It's more violent than you really think. Yeah. And the more that we're replacing history in the history books today, like we're bound to repeat this.
Yeah.
If people don't believe this has happened in our past, well, guess what? We can just recreate it.
Yeah.
Like we can recreate everything that you already said didn't happen.
Yeah. And I think that's Jordan Peterson. That's when Jordan Peterson comes into the conversation. And it's like that little Ouroboros of chaos. Like that sea monster's down there. Just because the water looks chill doesn't mean it's not going to happen. In fact, the second that we think it can happen is when we're ripe for it to repeat itself. And it's relevant because it's seasonal. everything in this life is seasonal, I believe. And so if it's been good for a long time, you got to know that winter or that extreme summer is like around the corner. So
without talking,
winter's coming.
Yeah.
Cold. We got a cold winter, whatever he said. Dark winter coming.
Yeah. Shout out Game of Thrones. What's up?
Without disclosing the principle here, but you do security for an organization. Of how I met you initially, is the threat, like, how big is the threat on the American Christian church in today's society? Because I know when I initially started seeing you at church, and I come from a small town in Northern California where we don't have security kitted up, and we don't have dogs walking around the church and stuff like that. To me, initially, I wasn't cool with it originally. Like, when I saw you guys out there, I'm like, this is a little overboard, right? Like, we're not going to church in Mata Sharif today, this is Orange County. But then, you start realizing, real threats that are out there. But, do you guys receive pretty heavy threats often with the American Christian church? Is this a big threat, that happens?
Yeah, man. So faith-based security, church security and securing places of worship is something I've done my whole entire career in this game. And I would say honestly that it is probably got the highest threat level. You work protecting a church, which is very interesting. You wouldn't think so.
You would never think.
Right? And because there's so many different threat packages that you're in, threat profiles you're dealing with, because church is a triage. It's like a hospital for hurting people, right? So you have a threat of domestic violence. Most of the shootings that happen on campus are domestic violence driven. Someone's trying to pick the kid up from school, from Sunday school, that shouldn't be picking the kid up from Sunday school. Cheating spouse goes to church with their new spouse, and so you have a domestic violence thing that can happen at any moment. Then you have the 5149s that like 5150s, the mentally handicapped folks, the genuine ones that are coming there that can, at any moment become violent because of whatever reason. You have, you also have the fact that the ones that there's the spiritual component that believe genuinely that they're doing something good by fighting against, whatever sect you're involved in. So there's that ideological opposition that's there as well. So other faiths. Then you have people inside your own faith that also think that your message, your pastor's a money pastor, or a major, too big, is making too much money and it's gone to his head, and they legit need to, for the good of the church and of God, need to destroy this person. And you have the ones that are I have a message for pastor and he needs to get my message, or I've been told this, so you have this mentally ill population that can come at any time. You have the domestic violence population that can come at any time. You have the opposing religious folks that these guys blow themselves up. They're legit problems, when they want to be, they can come at any time. And then you have other little things that are around your pastor or organization. So there's always something happening at churches. And then you have the reality that we're seeing more and more sophisticated attacks on places of worship. So vehicle-borne attacks where people just drive in and run over everybody in common areas. You have rifle attacks where people are just popping up, in the shooting in Texas, or even the one in New Zealand where you're getting body counts in the double digits because no one has the hardware to be able to stop somebody. To now, even insurance companies are well, do you guys have armed security at your church? You want to have a church? If you want decent premiums, you better have some kind of security assets.
Which is a scary thing that's become a thing now.
Yeah, and then you have just the fact that a gathering of people now, with all the crazy people, it's a huge, it's kind of a liability because you don't know who's in that crowd and what their ideas are. You know what I mean? So, I'd say I work harder on my faith-based clients because there's almost always something going on. There's some weird package that shows up with letters that are cut out from magazines, and there's all the time, there's always something. There's a bolo, there's a transient person that's just showing up that just wants to go to church, or maybe has some completely other ideas because they think we're the Antichrist. Or there's brothers that get high, take drugs, break into your building, with guns, butt naked, and run around because they want to kidnap the pastor.
That was a good one.
Take him to his private jet and go fight the Antichrist. You know what I mean?
So I'm guessing that was actually a real story.
Yeah,
it's a thing, bro.
That happened 2 years ago? 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Cool.
On a Saturday night.
And this is just a slow Tuesday in the church security, man. And you get inoculated to it after a while, like, and you get real good at recognizing these people.
He shows up and he's like, "Why are your pants off again? God damn it!
You know,
put your pants on at least, man."
You know, whereas with your celebrities, yeah, you can get some stalkers, but most people just want to get close and taste the magic. You know what I mean? Corporate folks, like no one even really knows who they are. No one really cares. You know what I mean? You got to watch out for the workplace violence game. And so it's much of the other client segments in the game are just so much more simple. But then you're dealing with a church. It's like executive protection, protecting the pastor, and then it's protecting the flock and protecting the people that are just trying to go to church, you know, from a number of different threats, you know. And so it's much more sophisticated operation on any given Sunday.
Yeah, I think like the
nice ending.
Like I dropped that on there.
On any given Sunday. Love the plug at the end
that
there.
was pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
every
true.
Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, man. I tell them every single day, every morning.
I mean, it's true though. Like the high-profile, high-end CEOs, Fortune 10, Fortune 100 guys. A lot of people don't really know who those guys are, and generally, a lot of those guys don't like to travel with security because they want to maintain a low profile when you're in country, which is better. Like honestly, there's a lot of times when not having personal private security in your presence with you is better to have that. Yeah, but having an exit plan is good to have, you know, and that's where a lot of services come in that are kind of watching you guys while you're there, and will send a go team and bring you out now than actually having them standing with you, because sometimes just having that big person standing by you, people are like, who is this guy and why does he have this asset with him right now? So like that's a fun dynamic thing that I've worked with a lot in my industry on the corporate side. Like we would always have there was times that we had go teams ready for us, but they wouldn't necessarily travel with us. But we would have assets in country that like, hey,
can spin up. Yeah,
if stuff starts to go south, if a queue's about to happen, you know, like we're out. Like and sometimes we're not taking the airplane, like we're skipping borders, getting through whatever to get us out of that country. So yeah, it's very interesting, but I always wanted to know, like, from the faith-based protection, like how big of an asset is now, or with the evolving evil that's happening in the world, do you guys consult to other churches to say like, hey, this is an asset you guys should probably look into, or having these assets in your church?
I'd say two things to what you just said. Yeah, the game is evolving really quickly now in terms of the private security operator who's being asked for. So like back in the beginning, it was like, I want the biggest, blackest, hardest, most gangsteriest, like, you know what I mean, people moving this, you know, mama bodyguard, you know. So that was the game, you know, when I first started. And you know, I had to gain like 20 some pounds just to get on my first team, you know. So
Byron's like, I'm black, I'm gangster.
I swear to God, I'm good, right? And I can swim.
You just see me do the backstroke, guys. It's fucking sick.
It's
I nail
crazy.
it.
Yeah,
I'm so good.
Yeah, man. So, but now it's evolved into like, I want the normalest looking dude that I can have that's dangerous and capable, which is kind of cool. Like, there's a civilian advantage to that. You know what I mean? Like, even me, like, I walk into a room and like, everyone's like, "Are you a cop? Are you like, what are you? What's going on?" You know what I mean?
You're like, "Bro, I'm just here to hang out.
I'm just trying to kick it." And they're like,
"I'll mess you up though."
Yeah, right.
Don't fuck with me.
They're like, "Yeah, okay, cop, whatever."
Okay, cop.
I'm like, I'm not a cop, you know. So
that's something a narc would say.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, for me, you know, being able to roll under the radar, like civilians that get into the game. And this is something I talk about with my school all the time, because I always have civilians asking me like, "Hey, can I do EP?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you absolutely can, dude. Like, get some training. Get the right training, learn how to approach the marketplace, and the industry will react to you." So like, they want like more civilian looking humans to roll with them nowadays, just to stay off the radar. Because I had it happen a lot of times with some of the guys I used to roll with, 270-pound dudes walk into a room, no one knows who the client is, but they know there's protection there. You know, like there's like a, you know,
this isn't normal to see four massive dudes just chilling right here. Like,
hanging
what
out,
the
like,
hell's going on here?
We had the cops called on us in front of a jewelry store once because we walked into a jewelry store, you know. But anyways, so, and then your question about
consulting churches.
So now, a lot of churches are having to build their own teams, you know. And so something I specialize in, since I had to do it at the cyclic rate, like I'm talking about like country after country after country, church after church after church. I've seen thousands of churches all over the world, and how I'd have to go in before my client, before my principal, and I'd have to set up their church security. I'd have to utilize their own assets, what they have, put a decent plan in place to get my guy in and out and off, on and off the X for years. So my company does that. And then also our model, you know, at the venue that you know of, is kind of looked at as like the gold standard in a lot of ways because of what we did, because we were the first guys with the balls to do what you saw us do, and everyone was like, oh, that's stupid, like why do you guys have like SWAT guys here, you know? And you know, in order to put that plan in, like, do we really, is this necessary, you know?
You guys
like,
are going a little overboard.
yeah, exactly. And we're sitting there like the better to protect you with, you know.
Yeah.
So but we consulted, you know, Luke, who set up the program, you know, consulted initially before bringing me on, consulted with Homeland Security, consulted with the FBI, consulted. We have contacts with all those guys, and they're like, yo, deterrence is kind of like the jam, homie. Like, you want them to come to your church and be like, I'm going down the street. Like, these guys are crazy. You want them to, and the interesting thing about that is, then the population of the church starts to, once they get over the initial shock, which we want, because the bad guys are also getting shocked, they start to feel way more safe. Like, yo, like we're prepared here. Like these cats are ready, you know, and they start to really value knowing like, okay, like there's some strong, hard dudes here to make sure we can worship in safety. But yeah, so we've done a lot for local churches in our area, helping them put their programs together, helping them build their programs. I've consulted with a lot of different operations, and you know, like there's not a lot of discretionary funding right now because of the hit the churches took because of the pandemic. So being able to do that and help teams get put in place, utilizing what the church actually has at their disposal is like kind of what I really try to do. And it's more about having, last thing I'll say on this is more about having the right people. It's more about having an information network set up at the church to get the right people to the right problems as quickly as possible than it is about having like all your ex-cops and all those guys on the team. Like we have everyone on teams, because that like chick that's on the security team that's in plain clothes in the bookstore is the person that no one's gonna see when they're like trying to do hood rat stuff in the bathroom.
Most low key thing you got,
and
like,
then they're gonna call us and we're gonna be able to react. But if that like off-duty cop that's like 1022'd up wearing 511s there, they're gonna be like, yo, like, you know what I mean?
the dude that's got just a mustache and aviator glasses on, you're like, dude, we know it's you.
Yeah, right? Stop following us around. You'll catch a lawsuit.
That's funny.
So where do you find a chest rig that fits you? Like where?
Yeah, dude, I was gonna ask you, where the hell do they make a plate carrier that fits around you?
Who makes this?
Yeah, man. I mean, no, dude. 511 makes some awesome stuff, and then on the high end of it, Cry Precision makes some awesome stuff. So it just depends on how you want to get down. You know?
What your taste is?
Yeah, man.
Wait, I wanted to ask you one more thing too. Did you say something about like you did a presidential, something presidential, or did I just hear something?
I worked the Trump inauguration, man. It was probably one of my favorite details I've ever been on, because we were out there and it, like, we had diplomatic immunity while we were there, driving through all the roadblocks, getting through everything. The news tried to make it look worse than it was. Like, you watch it on the news and it's like, and you know, vehicles are burning in the streets. There's one vehicle on fire, and they showed it again and again and again and again. You know, like there were red hats everywhere. You know, so it was like there's these little islands of people protesting for the most part. And then one of the days, it actually got sideways. But yeah, I got to go to all the events and, you know, see everything.
So you were with him like the whole...
I wasn't with Trump. I was on one of his high donors that was civilian side and couldn't get State Department coverage. So they hired private security to cover him. So I was hanging with those boys and rolling around with those boys. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was a cool. And we're sitting in the hallway, and one of the Secret Service guys is like, so what, I don't even remember what he said. He's like, what precinct or whatever are you with, dude? And I'm like, and I looked at him, I was like, I'm private. And he's like, you're not in the Secret Service? And I'm like, no, man. And he's like, what's this pin you have on? And I'm like, oh, this.
You have your Secret Service pin on?
I'm like, I got this from the hotel lobby before the beginning of the week. I'm like, you got to get a pin. You're in D.C. And he's like, that's a Secret Service pin that you have on. And I'm like, well, talk to the hotel, homie. And he's just like, he hated me after that. It's just like, I hate
You're
you.
like, bro, they're handing these out to everybody.
Yeah, he's like, this whole time I thought, I was like, I got one for my homie and I got one for me.
Those are my favorite. I used to wear one on my uniform. We had a couple Secret Service details that we flew around, and they would give us the pins at the end of the flight and stuff. So I still have a Secret Service pin. Those are pretty fun though.
No, I love it. I have one. I have like one of those too, but like this was
couple
just
humble
hilarious.
brags. Okay. All right.
If you watch like newscasters, some wear them. Like Hannity wears one, and there's a couple guys out there that wear one.
It's an honor to have one of those dropped in your hand, man. It's a good feeling, dude. Yeah, those guys are the top of the game, you know.
Yeah, no, they're cool. We had my parents, since all the kids have moved out, though. rent rooms out to people every now and then.
Awesome.
And a family member of ours, cousin, is in the Secret Service, still is.
Yeah.
And he was on a detail up in the Bay Area for a while, so he was staying at my parents' house for a while.
Sweet.
So we had a Secret Service guy that was living at our house for a while.
Heck
and
yeah.
he was a cool dude. He had a bunch of cool detail stories, and he's been with like 4 or 5 different presidents now throughout his time. So he's had some pretty cool details and some fun stories and stuff, and some stories about people that you're like, oh yeah, for sure you don't want to guard them, but you know it's their job. But
do you get so when you're like a Secret Service dude, do you get like put on one person and or do you bounce around?
You can bounce. It depends on the detail. This the Secret Service, I used to mess with them all the time because like we would fly into Morristown in New Jersey, and when Trump was in office, he would go up there all the time, and so there would be like times like Trump was about to come and the Secret Service is shutting stuff down, so like we either going to get stuck sitting on the airplane or we got to get off the airport, and like we'd be walking around, like I'd walk by like the FBO and like go out the side gate, and there'd be a couple Secret Service guys, and like I knew my buddy would be on detail and I'd be like, hey, where's he at right now? And they're like, who are you and how do you know him? And I would always mess with him, and he would always text me. He's like, are you at the airport? I'm like, yeah. I was like, where are you at? And he goes, yeah, I just found out you were asking for me. I was like, I just want to say what's up. I know you're around here.
They're like, how do you even have this contact?
Oh, they would met like the dudes, like he would think it's funny, like he didn't care at all, but like all his buddies that didn't know who I am, and I'm just name dropping a Secret Service guy, and they're like, who are you and how do you know who this is?
And they're legit pissed.
Oh, yeah. Like, this isn't funny. Literally, how do you know this?
Oh,
Yeah. That's funny, man. Now, the closest thing I ever had happen is like when Obama was president. Everywhere I went in a suit, people were like, is Obama here? And I'm like, God bless you. God bless you. Man, I think the Secret Service is here. Is Obama coming around? And I'm just like, you know what? That made sense to you. Like, you connected some dots, and that was what you came up with.
You're like, you just got to the point where you're like, yeah, dude, he'll be here in a minute.
Yeah, right.
He's right behind
Stay in the lobby.
Yeah.
He's signing. He's gonna give you.
Yeah, he's handing out the autograph line. Starts right over there, actually.
It was so gross. I was like, God bless you, people. God bless America.
Oh man. Well,
awesome.
But Byron, I mean, I'm stoked to have you on. I want to have you on again because, dude, you have some, insane stories. This is probably like one of the heavier podcasts we've even sat down and with a guest as far as stories go. I mean, we've had some vets on the show, we've had some team guys on the show, and
awesome.
I'm stoked to have you here. Your stories are very humbling, very eye-opening stuff.
Cool perspective, honestly.
Cool perspective.
Very cool perspective.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You guys can find Byron on Instagram at Byron_Rogers. He does a lot of personal security stuff every day online.
Yeah.
You do.
So
videos.
do you do like birthdays? You cover. You guys doing like quinceañeras?
Yeah, man, you know, we keep it classy, you know.
But follow Byron. All his other pages are linked to his bio. But daily, you have great videos, great perspective on videos. That's one of my favorite things. Some of these police shootings and things that happen out there, and the media is trying to blow it up in a different direction, and then you kind of go in there and show what's going on and talk through what's happening, you know. And
we didn't even get into your tactical
protection reviews.
Which I watched a couple of those. Those are gnarly.
Thanks, man.
Like some of the footage that you get is pretty crazy. And I'm sorry, I know we're kind of wrapping this up, but I wanted to ask you, like, do you kind of take that tactical, outlook into, is that like everyday life for you? Are you kind of using a tactical, like looking around every time where you're just, I don't know, like where you're in just a common place and you're like, okay, I know, like I can do that, I can do that.
Homie, 100%. Like that's the whole driver for that. Like the driver for that is, I see the way. If you see the way I see it, you do what I do. You have what I have, and what I got from combat and all that is that hypervigilance. So I'm always implementing these different tools and strategies to create a safer environment for me or whoever I'm there to that I'm hired with or who I love, or just it's what I represent as protection. Like it's more than just a job; it's a lifestyle. Protector by nature and by trade. Like this is who I am, right? And so that whole driver for tactical protection reviews is like You know, like I have 5 sisters. I try to tell them something about how to keep themselves safe, and they're like, yeah, like you're a security dude, like I don't care. And I'm like, okay, cool. So now, how do I get like all the people in my life that aren't like that to start like up in their game? It's like, oh, I'm gonna microdose you with trauma because you're gonna watch now like violence on when I drop it on the internet.
Microdose you with trauma,
and trauma is the best teacher. Pain retains. So you know, like there it is, action, real world action event, and then I'm gonna walk you through that event, and I'm gonna show you the way I see it, the way I take it in, the way everything I saw coming, and that way hopefully people out in the world. And now I'm getting all these progress reports of people like, yo, you know, like I was out walking to my car and I like heard Byron telling me like, yo, you're in a transitional space right now, this is where dangerous things happen, and like I'm gonna, you know, I got to get in my car, but I should put my back up against the wall, and like I saw this dude watching me, and like I'm starting to get these reports back, and that's all I want is I want that software that keeps people safe to come out into the world and make it a safer place by making good people more dangerous.
Have you had anyone that's like very anti-law enforcement that have like watched your reviews and like, hey man, I actually respect your perspective on this, and I get like what the cop is kind of going through now in this scenario? Have you had any of that yet?
No, that's interesting. I haven't had that yet. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, but I haven't looked to see if like it was somebody coming over and having like a Saul DePaul experience on it, you know, like coming over yet. I haven't.
Saul DePaul, I like that one. That's a good one.
But that'd be cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, like I wanted to ask that too, where I mean, coming from a tactical point of view, watching, you know, whatever body cam footage of a police shooting or whatever it might be, you know, the news is going to portray that one way, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's obviously like, oh, you killed a person, that's bad.
Right.
But from your point of view that's been through it, seen the dirty stuff that you've seen, and then you're looking at it from like, hey, I need to protect myself.
Right.
It's a pretty crazy perspective change, I would say, because I mean everybody's going to see the news more, right? That's your main media outlet.
Yeah.
And
but dangerous.
But right, and then but you have someone like you who is like, hey, you know, from my perspective, this is what I would have done.
Yeah.
And I mean, nobody at the end of the day, nobody wants to shoot anybody. Like, no one's waking up going, I'm gonna shoot somebody today.
Except for Marines.
except for the psychopaths that you were on tour with.
But no, but
you know what I mean. Like it's a totally different world when you have somebody who's been in it, seen it.
Yeah.
And then you have the other people that's like, hey, this is on the news.
Yeah, that's what I'm most scared about with the public when things happen, is the fact that you have people that have no idea what they're talking about. You can post a video of a police officer using perfect tactics, navigating a situation perfectly, and because the public knows nothing about like the 21-foot rule, like if a dude has a knife and he's in the room with you and he's within 21 feet, he can stab you to death before you can shoot him. That's a real threat. But because the civilian population has zero concept, zero trained, they've never had a guy with a play knife and you with your play gun, like try to shoot each other and see how hard it really is. They have no appreciation for that. So they see a cop shoot a dude with a knife and they're like, this cop murdered this young person. And you're like, you've no idea what that cop knew. His life was actually in danger, and you'll never be able to perceive it because you have no experiential information around it. Right. And so now they can crucify this cop with, you know, and no one's going to, you know, hopefully someone will stick up for him. But the tactical community sees it, you know, and we're like, yeah, freaking righteous kill, dude. Like, you lived, you saved a life. If someone's trying to stab my daughter, shoot them, please. But like, and the civilian population is just like literally vulnerable to whatever narrative whoever's in a mood to puts out.
And that's what I'm saying. I think it's cool because like I get to hear both sides, right?
Yeah.
Like now I get to see like, you know, oh, that was bad, he shouldn't have done that. And then you're like, you know, he did the right situation to save himself, to protect the other people.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of cool hearing both sides actually see what's actually right or wrong, you know.
Yeah, and then you can make your own decision.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And then you're able to actually make an educated decision on what is right or wrong.
Well, that's something I've just never understood. Like how all these people, you know, you have like Nancy the teacher over there, and all of a sudden she's a SWAT expert and like a cop expert, and you're
you
like,
should have shot him in the leg with the taser, and you're like, what world do you live in? Not this one. That's the problem.
It's like, I don't teach 5th grade math, right? You know, I'm not going to come into your class and tell you that you're doing this wrong.
100%.
You know, like it's all of a sudden that everyone's an expert in this one enforcement. It's like, oh, cool. When did you go through the police academy? Oh, when did you go through FTO? Like,
how many hours have you put behind your gun?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's just, it blows my mind how everyone's all of a sudden an expert on
everybody's
everything.
Everybody's an expert now. I love it. Yeah, it's great.
And you're like, dude, what? respect the job of the people that took the job and do the duty that they do.
And deal with that trash every
Well,
single
but
day,
those are the same people too, like you're saying. But if you like went up to her and you were like, "Hey, you're not teaching math right," she'd be like, "Excuse me, like
And what school did you?
Yeah,
And
where did you do your training?
Where did you
And
get
you're
your
like,
teaching
yeah.
credential? Okay,
Yeah.
And it's like the same rules apply on the other side, you know. And it's
But it's whoever the media decides to crucify next. You know what I mean? Like, I love doctors, but like no one talks about their kill count. You know what I'm saying? You're up in here rolling up on all these cops and stuff like that. But I mean, we can get real. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, the third leading cause of death in America. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, not doctors, but the medical industry. You know, like. I don't want to get you guys.
Prescription
I don't want
drugs.
to get you guys shadow banned.
We've already been canceled like every other episode, so it's fine.
Oh man.
No, but I mean, dude, I love the perspective, and I want to, do more episodes with you and keep the attention span of the people, within the model, because we can go for hours, literally, with you. We could sit here and go for hours.
This is good stuff.
And it's fun, and we'll dip more into like failing forward. Like I like how you kind of started with that and brought that perspective to the table. Like, hey, it's okay to fail, but it's not okay to quit.
Yeah, I didn't even have to lead him in. Like
Yeah,
he just brought that straight in. I was like, "Thank you."
Thanks, failure brings motivation. It really does, and it's in the perspective of how you failed, that how you're going to rise, that you didn't quit, that you're going to keep pumping. So that was cool, and like just your whole background, bringing that to our table is awesome. So hopefully we could do more stuff, and dude, it's been a blessing
100%.
just have you sitting on the show with us.
Thank you so much for joining us. We
for
we
sure
really
our
appreciate
largest guest that we've had on the show.
Yeah, right. Anyways.
Yeah, you're the first one that almost didn't fit in the seat. So
No, well, thank you.
You're an absolute beast, man. Like maybe you should grow your hair out and go Samson style. you know?
Yeah, right. Man, I shaved it off when I went in the Marine Corps. I've never had it back.
Did you play sports growing up or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a 6A school in Washington, played football all 4 ways. Was like, I'm gonna go. I wanted to go play football, and then I was like, I had a buddy whose dad was in the NFL, and he had a twitch from like head trauma, and I was like, I'm not going to play football. I'm going to the Marine Corps. I could die. It's way better.
The trauma is way better trauma.
Yeah,
better trauma.
Higher quality trauma.
Higher quality trauma.
Man. So yeah, I was big on football. That was my main jam.
That's it. What position did you play?
I was tackle, pulling guard, and special teams, man. So
Were you always big? Like, was fitness and working out always your goal?
yeah, we had the second best weightlifting program in the state of Washington, 6A school. So it was like straw dog type behavior. Like cops, like we were like owned our town. And so what I played ball at like 225. Okay. And then
he was actually the kicker, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But we had
would
like
never
three...
think,
Byron graduated high school 135 pounds. We're wild.
Never would have thought, honestly.
Yeah, no, I've been 225 coming out of high school, and then I got the Marine Corps, and they said I was obese, right? And we had like 300 some odd pounders in our line, at that school in high school. It's kind of weird to think about, but. And then the Marine Corps was like, "You're obese," and like cut me down to
I'm a little thick, but all right.
You're like, this is a good fighting weight.
That boot camp hollowed me
225 to 175
after boot camp.
Oh, they really cut you down.
They hollowed me out, yeah. And then when I got back into the fleet, I back home, then I got back up to my 225, just naturally. It's like this is stock basically.
Just eating normal food.
Yeah, and then Iraq, I fought at like 190 something, 200 pounds flat. Yeah. With 100 pounds of gear and 130 degrees heat.
Like I said,
no big deal.
No big deal. No,
like
I'm not saying
just another day.
Like I said in the beginning of the show, unit, absolute unit.
I'm usually the smallest dude on half the details I put together, man. It's funny.
I don't want to mess with the detail. I don't think.
No, just say so. Stay away from Byron's
Yeah,
details.
yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
You guys do podcast security?
Yeah, we need someone out front right here.
We need a doorman.
Hey, man, if the money's right. No.
With like $12, you guys.
Right?
What can I get for 38
38
cents?
I'll check my wallet. I think I got like $6
I got about
in there right
$3.50.
now.
I interviewed a dude that just got hemmed up. Like, he didn't make it on any team, but he was like, yeah, I shouldn't even go into this. The question is, how far will you go for $2,000?
Well,
anyways.
Well, like Matt was saying, we would definitely love to have you back on because we could keep this going forever. We're already climbing the time chart here, but thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Your stories and your perspective are absolutely amazing. Everybody make sure to go check him out, Byron _Rogers. He's got all his other pages linked in the bio. And this is just one bad dude. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I know we did.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, have a good one. Thanks, Byron.
Thanks,
Man,
Byron.
it's an honor. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been amazing.
Later, guys.
See ya.